Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm the host of a Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. Hi everybody, lovely to be back on another podcast.
And welcome everyone to the podcast. In every Toolkit episode, we try to give you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. And today, it's one of those sessions where we have a special guest on to help us illustrate lots of points about what we've been talking about. And our session today is about setting up classroom libraries, but a lot more, Sharon.
Yes, not just classroom libraries, because we're going to introduce Maddie now.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello.
let's. Maddie Cottrell, early career teacher.
I certainly am.
Yes, and this is what's so
am.
exciting because we haven't. This is our first podcast with an early career teacher. We love to have all different perspectives around
Yes.
the profession, and so we'll get into some more chat with. But we welcome Maddie to really. Maddie, I came across not that long ago, actually, and she's a very active early career teacher.
Thank you.
She's having a big chuckle here, as we all are. So in talking about, so Phil's mentioned already, we'll talk about classroom libraries, but it isn't just classroom libraries.
No.
So we really want to explore things that, through Maddie's learning this year, I call her a teacher who is yearning for learning, because she is not only somebody who is really focused on the learning of her students, but she's certainly focused on her own learning.
Oh, certainly.
Yes, and that just has come across which is why she'll talk about more than one thing today, and we'll talk about that journey of learning in a little bit. But I do want to reference in that for the Australian professional teaching or teacher standards, what has really played out for Maddie that we can reference today is really about that, engaging in professional learning and doing that to not just engage, but to really improve practice, to engage with colleagues about that. And this is the one that's the big one, is applying that professional learning. So, it's nice. I think, today the session's really going to talk, as Maddie will help us see some of that journey from starting with the learning and how that's played out to not only how that's changed practices for herself, but what she has seen, how she's seen her students engage with that learning. So,
But just going back a step,
yes.
Maddie, how long have you been teaching? And
I've just concluded my second year of teaching. I've had reception for this year, and then I've had reception for 3 terms the year before that. So I'm very excited to be going to 2021, having another beautiful bunch of reception students.
And you're at Mount Barker
South.
Yeah.
Primary school.
Yeah.
So a local school here for us in the Adelaide Hills.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
How big is that school?
Oh, well, like I was saying to you guys earlier, we're constantly having enrolments. Each week we've got new emails coming out about new enrolments. So I think at the moment, and it very well could be higher than this now, but the last that I heard, I think we were sitting at about the 350 student mark.
Wow.
Yeah, because Mount Barker, for those who are not from Adelaide, is a growing area up in the Adelaide Hills where it's just expanding.
It certainly
People
is.
are moving there to get into the hills lifestyle.
It's absolutely beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not the only primary school.
No.
There's a number of
There is.
primary schools in Mount Barker. So, but it's an exciting time for the school. Growth.
Certainly
and
is.
Yes.
And what got you into teaching? What was the thing that drove you?
I think this is quite a funny...
Oh, good.
Yeah. I finished school and was actually very inclined on going into the police force. So I spent a couple of years getting a bit of life experience, as I know that that's kind of what they seem to look for before they actually enrol you.
Yes.
And in those 2 years, I had a moment where I kind of thought, I'm too much of an emotional person to do this job, I think. I think I'd find it very hard to, and I wouldn't want to disassociate from what was happening. I think that that's kind of where I drew the line at it. And had a 20-year-old life crisis. Realised I had no idea what I was going to do. And I think it kind of came around in the way that I reflected on the things that I had really enjoyed growing up doing, and it's always been helping others, working with children in particularly. I'd grown up my teen years doing babysitting, nanny work. I was a netball coach. So I think that sort of was a little bit of a light bulb moment of why have I never considered teaching as a profession and a career? So I jumped into university and studied the 4-year degree over 3. I condensed the university degree and did summer semesters. So it was 3 years of non-stop study.
Yes. Yeah.
But I got it done quicker, which meant that I got into the job faster. And I'm so happy that I did.
Oh, and the profession is so happy that you did.
Did you have much prac teaching or?
I studied online through Charles Darwin University, and I was so pleased to hear that I had 4 professional teaching opportunities, and all of them actually required more physical teaching hours than I had heard from universities that have campuses in Adelaide. So I had some fantastic experiences. My last placement was 6 full weeks of teaching full time, so 2 weeks of observations, and then I was straight in, and I absolutely loved it and was in absolute tears when it came to an end because I just wanted to keep going with the class. And and
you found that younger year level is that when you discovered that?
Yeah, I really do have a very fond spot for the early years. The pracs that I did Arda 4, I think, was the eldest age group that I did, but I've got a very strong love for teaching the younger years.
Yep.
And that's where, and so the placement, this year, 2020, your first full year.
Yes.
Oh, look, and for, because we're podcasting, Maddie's face is just beaming.
I'm going to have sore cheeks at the end of this.
It's, yes, a full year. There is nothing more wonderful, is there, than having, your first year you had 3 terms with a class?
Yes, I did.
And that was with the one class?
Yes, it was.
So terms 2, 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And what year level was that?
That was reception
as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So here you are now rolling into, so next year will be another full year with the reception class.
It will be.
Yes.
It will be.
Big smiles here. Big smiles.
Massive smiles.
And passionate about learning? Did you?
Very.
That was before teaching, or was it during? Yep.
Yeah, always. Just, my experience with school was fantastic. I had fantastic teachers. I went to beautiful schools. I had great opportunities. I've got fantastic parents. I've just always been in an environment that's fostered that love for learning new things and changing your mindset, and having a growth mindset, I think, is something that I've just been brought up having. So always been immersed in it and loved it.
Yeah. Maddie, as we can hear, is very reflective.
I am.
So, yes, being able to draw on, the what has, it's not just about the teaching, that as a learner.
Yeah.
And as we said before the podcast began, we've been here talking more about learning and how that's going to look in another new year. So,
because when you got that first class or even the next year's class, there would have been, you got that passion for learning, but then you had these kids in front of you and they're all learning at different stages, aren't they? So there are challenges there, aren't they?
Always, And I think being a teacher, and I think especially being in early years, I think it's very noticeable because you start your year and you have this new bunch of children and it's very evident the prior knowledge that they're bringing in on particular topics. So I think that in the early years, especially in that term 1, it's very evident the scope that you have with these children. So it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's the best job, I think. And I think you'd agree with me.
Yes,
it is
we
the best.
do.
It's the best job.
We do.
Yeah.
You get to change. You're changing kids' lives, aren't you? You know?
Yeah.
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 And you see that in a big way in those younger years too.
Yeah, and that's something that I do say a lot to people, especially about teaching the early years. The growth and the development, it's so clear in the early years, and it certainly happens at all years of schooling. It most certainly happens, but I think in reception, it is so clear the development they have over a term, over the year. Last week I was packing up the classroom and sending home, envelopes full of their work, and there was a piece of work that I put in there that was the first piece of work that we did at the beginning of the year, and there were children that came to school not being able to spell their name.
Yes.
So, even just reflecting on that, and I pulled a couple of kids up and said, look at this, this is what you did at the beginning of the year, and look at you now, you're writing full sentences, and, at the beginning of the year we were practicing letter formation of your name.
Yes.
So it's like I said, it's a year where the growth and the development is just so exciting.
So coming into a school and wanting to do the best you can, what sort of things have helped you along the way that have, if we were talking to early career teachers out there, things that, you found beneficial, there'll be people listening today who are going to teach for their first year next year. What are the things that...
Most certainly your colleagues.
Yeah.
They are a source of information that you need to ask.
Yep.
In my first year, I came in term 2. I was like a duck in water. I was paddling frantically underneath, but tried to look all calm, collected. But I just asked questions, and we say it to our children. There's no such thing as a silly question. I think it's something that we also need to practice ourselves, asking questions, whether you do think that it's a very obvious answer. But I think for me, working in the school that I do, but the colleagues that I had across the hall in other year levels in the staff room, they were so warm and welcoming, but also so helpful in terms of giving me the information that I required, in specific to our site-specific things, but also in terms of, coming in and thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to teach Jolly Phonics. Can you help me with the program? I can't remember how to run the program, even as simple as that. I think that for early career teachers, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that you have to get out of that mindset of trying to just be a duck.
Yes.
And look like you've got it all under control. Yeah. Ask questions. That would be the biggest thing.
So you're going to grow into a swan, maybe?
I hope so.
Nothing wrong with ducks.
Oh, we like ducks. But and there's been some new learnings this year, some new things that have come into your teaching.
A lot. Thank you, Sharon. No, like Sharon said, I am constantly reflecting on my practice and how my practice is, how the children respond to my practice. So quite often I'll do a lesson and I'll sit there at the desk afterwards and go, all right, I'm going to try that again tomorrow. And I'm going to do it like this tomorrow. Yeah. I've actually taught entire units again because I've just felt that the outcomes haven't matched what I was hoping for. So I've gone back and gone from a different angle because it's a reflection on, okay, I'm going to teach it a different way. I'm going to see if the children connect with it this way. And I found in particular we were doing our phonological awareness, and I found that the children weren't grasping the concept of matching rhyme and producing rhyme in particular. So I actually went back and did the whole unit again because I felt that it's so important that these children really do go through from foundation with a really strong phonological awareness. Yes. And it's something that cannot be skimmed over. So I went back and I did the whole unit again, and the outcomes from the second time round were so fantastic. And it really did just clarify to me that it is okay to do it again, and that being reflective is actually a very good trait to have when being a teacher. So there's been aspects like that have been really big this year in particular, because I think last year, like I said, it was 3 terms, but it was just I hit the ground and I was running, and the year just was so fast. So this year, starting from term 1, I really could set myself up to teach the entire year rather than trying to play, I guess, a catch-up because I wasn't there for the first term.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you heard about some new things this year, like the classroom library, and do you want to talk a bit about that? Or
Yes, so being an early career teacher, I was fortunate enough to be involved in a early career PD. There was 2 days of literacy and 2 days of numeracy, and the literacy was run by Sharon, and it was very, very enlightening, for a lack of more fantastic words. I went home from the first day and went to school at about 6 a.m. and got straight into my classroom and started rejigging things just based on the things that Sharon had said that really resonated with me and really resonated with a few of the children, well, all of the children in my class, that I just thought this is that next step. This really is that next point of engagement for these children in terms of their literacy. So
what resonated?
Just the every child, every day aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that I do reflect on a lot is that if I can show the children the interest, the engagement is going to naturally form from there. So straight away I thought, reflecting straight on my class library, I had one bookshelf and that was it. So how can I expect the interest to be there if they're not engaging with it because I'm not engaging with it and I'm not showing them how to use it? So I think straight away that was a really big light bulb moment for me. Well, these kids aren't engaging with the books because I'm not showing them that there's an interest in it. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the first things. I went straight back to class and I went straight to the class at our school library, borrowed a stack of books, put them in there, and then was straight on Seesaw and asked for donations from families to really stock it up. And I was completely overwhelmed by the response from that. So,
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
Did you?
Now, what a great strategy.
Yeah.
Wow. So not only were you setting this up to engage your students, but you were really setting it up to engage as a whole community.
Yeah, it really is that idea.
The whole families being a part of and a real spillover from school to home.
Exactly right. And again, that really does come into that, the idea of you build the interest, the engagement is naturally going to follow. So when children were seeing their parents bringing in books and donating books and seeing how excited I was about, these beautiful picture books, some being brand new, never been opened, my excitement, my interest naturally spilled over for these children in the classroom, and the book nook became an entire quarter of my classroom. So
yes, on that,
I like that name, Book Nook.
Isn't it gorgeous? Can I just after that day together, yes, you came in the next session for the second day because they were consecutive days, which just as an aside, there was some power in that, wasn't there? The consecutive days of that learning.
Yeah.
And it was, this year we had to reschedule things a bit, and so yes, it was end of term 3, I think it was here, that you had these 2 days of learning and a couple of weeks beforehand, the 2 days of maths. Yep. But I remember you coming in on that Friday morning, right at the end of term 3, going, well, I got into work at 6 this morning and I have would you like to see the photos of what I've done? And there it is, labelled, not just, rejigged. It's now labelled and looking like we all wanted to be in that book nook with you.
Yeah.
It was completely engaging, completely inviting. You shared that out with all of us. It was such a thrill for every one of us too. And I think it really let us all know how immediate some changes can be.
Yeah, the impact was immediate.
Yes, yeah. So how did you see your students? So this was the end of a term.
Yeah.
In fact, it was it the Thursday, Friday, right at the end of a term? I can't remember now.
No, I can't either.
Was it a month? Anyway.
It was very close to the end of the term.
end of the term.
Yeah.
So your children coming back. So tell me about their interactions then when they came to
It
find
has become a place that I have to monitor. Otherwise, the entire class is trying to be in that quarter of the room and no tables are being used. So it has become a space that is very popular, which, of course, I am so excited about because that is the intention of the space, is to create an environment where children are so engaged with their learning, with their reading, with the space as a in an academic environment. So it's been fantastic seeing the space grow because, like I was saying to you earlier, it's changed more, it's developed more, and it's just become a space that it's inviting to look at. And the kids love being in it, so it's just been really nice to sort of see it grow.
So they're writing in that area.
Yep.
They are engaging in that space and with texts in other areas, in other curriculum areas.
I really did want to make, because I was very aware of the fact that I did want to make it a large space because I really did want it to be inviting, engaging. I didn't want it to be the nook that it once was. I wanted it to be a learning space. Yes. So I really have taken on that flexible learning approach, and I've got kneeling tables, there's bench space for children to write with, tray tables. They can sit inside a piece of furniture that I've got. It's a book sitting area, but there's space for different ways to learn in there, which has been well received by the children.
And I guess in many ways you're creating spaces for them to be readers and writers.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So that it's not just seen as, there's the book nook that is, well, that's where I can collect a book. You're really creating in this space, I am also a reader and a writer. That's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm a learner.
Yeah. And I've got displays in there that they do use that wording, good readers, ... And then I've got all of these pieces of information which children can refer to and put themselves in that position of, I'm a good reader because I've chosen a just right book. I can pick this book up and I can read it. So I've also made the space with the identity that the children need so that they know what they're doing in that space, and being successful in that space looks like doing these things. So it's been a space that has brought explicit teaching lessons.
Yes.
I've taught from in there and I've shown them how to use the space.
Yes.
I've gone as far to show them how to organise and put their books away. So I've got colour-coded dots on the books that tie back to the genre of that book. So I've got yellow dots on books that are procedures, and there's a yellow name tag that says procedures. So the children know where to put the books back when they're finished as well. And that, again, really does foster that ownership and the accountability of the book nook. And then also just, the simple things of having the books with their covers facing outwards and those things that we like to see in a library. So they're transferring that from the library to the classroom library as well. So it's just been a nice place for them to also show a bit of ownership as well.
So really the management side of it has been an important part, part of teaching them how it works.
Yep, exactly.
Because we can't assume, of course, that children will know how a classroom library will work. So
Definitely.
bringing that to
and
them.
I think the colour coding of it has been a game changer because when I first set the library up, I did have all the the picture narratives together, and then I had the procedures together and the information reports together. But then when I'd go back through and do a sort, I'd find that the books were everywhere. So I thought, how can I put in some form of organisation that is going to be something that a 5 and a 6-year-old can also maintain. And so the colour coordinating of the name tag for that bookshelf to the book itself has been fantastic. And the kids, they can come up to me and they say, Miss C, I'm not sure where this one goes. And I say, what colour dot does it have? And they'll say, green, and then off they go. They don't even need me to come over with them. So, and even pushing that further when we've when we were doing our phonological awareness, focusing on rhyme, I'd gone through our storybooks and pulled out all of the books that had rhyme in them and put them into their own shelving and had that labelled as rhyme, and then put a little R on the sticker, so then the children knew, oh, well, it's a story, but it's also a rhyming story, so they could put that back. So then that was fantastic.
There's a nice technique.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to change the colour of the sticker, just to add that R on there as another feature, let them know that was another category, and that collection labelled as the rhyming books.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I guess there'd be times too where they would be finding things that they would say, oh, here's another book to add.
Yes.
Are you finding them engaging in the classroom library in that way as well? That
has been the biggest impact that I've noticed, is the desire to be in the space and to use it as a reading space. I've noticed since getting the donations, children want to read. I've definitely seen a massive increase in the desire to read once finishing a task. So then they'll say, oh, can I go off and read now? And I'll say, of course you can, off you go. Yes. And then I had a lesson where I had a little moment where I sort of stopped and looked around the room, and every single child in the room was reading to someone, and that wasn't something that I'd said. It wasn't
Reader's Workshop even.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
It was read to self, read to a partner, whatever your choice is, we're going to do some reading. That was when we first got the library, because I just wanted them to engage with it and sort of explore it. And off they go, they all grab their books and off they went. And then I had a little moment where I actually stopped and looked back, and every single child in the room had their eyes on the book with a partner. They were talking about the book. They were flicking through the pages beautifully together. It was just a little moment where I stood back and went, this is the impact. This is what it looks like when you are showing them the interest. There's the engagement that's going to naturally come from that. It was just a really lovely little moment.
A big moment.
Yeah.
Really.
It was lovely.
One of the things that we really are aiming for, that the kids will want to read and love books, and yes, we need to teach them strategies and skills and whatever, but in the end, what do we want? We want all those kids to love books and love reading. Which you're getting going as well as the skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I guess that really is a good time for us to just even connect to, you mentioned the Every Child, Every Day piece, which is is really a bit of a learning focus at your school.
It is.
So that wasn't, that had already been, that had come in as part of your school culture. Yeah. So you've actually got two of the teachers at your school who've been part of we've talked about before on our podcast, the Be Brave and Lead project. And I think there was a little bit of I think Steph and Sarah even ran sort of a little bit of an audit.
They did.
At the school.
They did.
Now, the 6 Every Child, Every Day elements that we are referring to come from research by Rachel Gabriel and Richard Allington. And they talk about the Every Child, Every Day pieces. First one is children choose. They choose something to read. So every day, every child chooses something he or she wants to read. Every child every day reads with understanding, reads with accuracy, hears a fluent adult reading, writes about something personally meaningful, and gets to talk about their reading and writing. So you have really seen the classroom library have just that huge impact on every child every day. Choosing. Yeah. So there, that first one by bringing in that classroom library, that's how it played out with. Yeah.
And I think also using that exact language with the kids is so empowering and gives them that accountability as well. Like, I am that every child every day. That is me. So therefore, this is what I'm going to do. So I think that's been a big thing as well in the classroom. Using that language with the children, really holds them accountable, but actually gives them that desire to be that person, to be that child every day. So I think that that's been a big thing as well.
Yes.
That I've reflected on this year, is just actually putting that vocabulary into their everyday.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful.
It's like those reader and writer actions, Sharon.
Yes, which Maddie's already alluded to as well. And that's something that across your school you've kind of taken on as constructing the learning around what good readers and good writers are doing, so that it's not only what you're talking about with students, but making that visible to students and anchoring that, so that I love what you said, that children can actually see themselves being that reader or that writer.
Yeah. And I think that really is the vision for our school in implementing it into our learning intention and success criteria, because we read those aloud to the children. I found that it was so nice then starting the learning intention by making them think in first person. This is me. This is what I'm about to do in this lesson to be a good writer or to be a good reader. So I also found that was a big impact in the children with their engagement.
Yes.
But also, again, with that accountability of this is me, I am right now, this is what I'm going to do to be a good reader. And we're providing them with the skills, the strategies and all of those things, but just then having that accountability of in first person. Yes. I'm the good reader, I'm the good writer, this is what I'm going to do. Yes. So that's been a high impact that has become a non-negotiable at our school. This is the wording that will be used, and it's been, the impact has been fantastic.
Oh.
And then the big thing is to then give them that time to be the reader, be the writer, because it's through that practice that they are fulfilling those goals that they've set themselves. Yeah.
Now, I know you've also brought a little reflective piece with you today, because, and I guess I'm guessing, but you can talk a little bit more about this, that one of the reasons why I think you initiating your learning so quickly is how reflective you are. And as part of the our 2 days intensive, literacy intensive for the early career teachers, we really sort of reflected after each part.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really did enjoy having that piece, because then it really was at the forefront. What, in that piece, in that 7T, what was I doing well and what's my next high impact change? And I liked that you did it in that way, rather than having 2 full days of lots of information and then having a reflection after the second day. I really enjoyed that it was broken up in that way, because I really could sit and actually reflect on what you had said in that 20, 30, 40 minute, however long it was for that tea. Yeah. But it was I found that I could be a lot deeper in the reflection, because it was still all at the forefront. It was still all things that I was nulling over. Yes. So I really enjoyed having that reflection at the end of that piece of work. So that was really nice.
So when Maddie's talking about the 7 Ts, we've, if you haven't heard our 7 Ts podcast,
go back to podcast 1.
Podcast number 1 is where we talk about the 7 Ts. But we did do, so really the 2 days we constructed around the 7 Ts. Time, texts, teaching, tasks, talk, thinking.
Together.
And together.
Yes,
and together. And so we really constructed literacy around that framework. And so, yes, after each of the input sessions, the question always was, what am I already doing that is working well, and what might be a high impact step that I can take. And Maddie came into the studio today going, I brought my little book with me. It's been so interesting to go back and look at the your reflections and to think, oh my goodness, and how that played out.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there anything out of that so we've talked about, I'm guessing classroom libraries.
Yeah.
Was a clear
that
one
was
that
definitely
came
one
up in there.
I think one in terms of being something that I implemented immediately, and the impact was fantastic, was I've always done read alouds.
Yes.
But I think making the read alouds a lot more engaging and providing more opportunities for people to call out and engage with the text, whereas before it would be a bit more, okay, coming in, we're going to relax. I want you to sit and listen to this story, and then I'm going to put the book away and then we're going to go into our lesson. So I changed that mindset of it being, come in, I'm going to read a story to you, to come in, we're going to read a story together.
Oh.
So that was something that immediately impacted. And again, it comes back to that classroom library. Therefore, that picture book has an entry point for all of the children because I've read it to them.
Yes.
And I started doing, really being very, what's the word? Being very picky about what I'd chosen for what was about to happen. So it sort of segued into the lesson. So quite often I'd pick out a pattern book that had numbers in the book, and then that would segue beautifully into our numeracy lesson. So there was things like that. But I think that the tantalising text and the read aloud was a big thing that I walked away thinking, okay, I'm doing them, but I'm not doing them very well. I'm doing them as a come in and relax. I'm reading to you, listen. Yes. Whereas now it's more come sit, let's pick out vocabulary, let's read it together, let's put ourselves in the characters. And one thing that I have done very purposefully is read a chapter book. Which
for
is something,
receptions.
which is
Yes.
something initially I went, it's not something that I would have ever considered doing with 5 and 6 year old. I felt that the comprehension and all of those things may have been too beyond.
Yes.
Boy, was I wrong, and I'm very pleased I was wrong. So it was actually a book that you gifted me. It was David Williams's The Naughtiest Children in the World. It is fantastic, and the kids beg me to read to them because the illustrations in it are fantastic. Yes. The book is hilarious. And the chapters I like because each chapter focuses on a different child. And I might read the chapter over a couple of days.
Yes.
But there was a day, end of the term, we're finishing stuff up I hadn't read for over the weekend. And we came in and I hadn't opened the book and I sat it on my lap and I was thinking, I can't remember who the last character was. I can't remember who we were talking about. So I posed the question to the class. I said, can you guys remember how our person is at the moment? Yes. And it was quiet for a bit and I can see them all thinking and they're calling out previous characters. And I'm like, no, we finished that chapter. We finished them. And then someone called out Harry, who never does his homework. And I went, oh my gosh, it is. Well, I was absolutely blown away. And I think that really was that moment for me where I went, don't put limitations on these children. Don't ever make assumptions that things might be too complex. So I learned a very valuable lesson in that, and these lessons have been fantastic. We read a chapter,
yes.
Then we have some time to talk to each other about our favourite part in that chapter, and then we go off and we draw a picture of our favourite scene. And again, the illustrations that have come out of these chapters blow my mind. There's some pictures where I'm looking at it and I know the exact part in that chapter that child has drawn about. And, for the class, there's no wrong or right answer. No. It's whatever you found the best part. It's a task where everyone is so engaged with it, and then we all share afterwards, and we're all giggling away. Like it's just such a lovely thing that has had a high impact straight away. Yep.
And all of those elements, aren't they? It's not just about the text, the tantalising text, but the talk, the thinking, the together.
Yeah, it's the together really that made the big difference for me.
Yes.
Big difference, having the together. We all come in and they're calling out and we're having conversations about things. I stop and I'll pose questions about what's happening for comprehension. So there's bits and pieces that I'm getting out of it as well as a teacher, because there's always a teaching opportunity.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, that's been one of the big things that has had an immediate impact, as well as the classroom library. But that tantalising text and being very, very conscious about how I'm doing it, when I'm doing it, and again,
and why you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
And the together is building your community of learners together and building that up. So
Yeah.
and they all interrelate, don't they? The tantalising texts, the together,
Yeah.
they all sort of gel together.
Talk.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
the thinking.
The talk, the
Yes,
thinking.
Yes.
Yep.
So one task.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another one of the T's. One task. Enabling all of those pieces
Yeah.
at high impact. No wonder it's high impact.
Yeah.
It is.
But it's also what I'm picking up is there's a quality way to do it rather than I'll just do a read aloud or I'll
Exactly
just do
right.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a much more high impact way to use each of those things, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like,
And in particular, that book itself, it's fantastic because the font that's used on the pages,
Yes.
it's so engaging. So when I'm coming up and the children can see there is, font size 102 on the page, they know that there's something exciting happening. And so there's so many teaching opportunities in it as well because, the word could be boom. But I would say to the kids, how would we say that word? How would we hear that word in this context? And they're all yelling at the top of their lungs. I'm like, okay, now we're back in a classroom. But it's things like that just, it's so exciting to be involved in that, in that moment where the kids, all 24, are 100% engaged.
Everybody, and that's a thing we talked about a lot, didn't we, on those 2 days, is entry points
Yes.
for every time. Everybody needs access.
Yep.
Everybody needs to, and that's where the read aloud, our listening comprehension is greater at this age than will be necessarily our not that we can't think as well when we're reading for ourselves, but when we're reading text, when we're reading, we're listening to, a literature rich, and a vocabulary rich text, we've got a listening comprehension that we can really draw from that, and then we can see that. I'm interested to know, I'm diverging here a little bit, but I feel like you're going to tell us that you've seen that play out in their writing.
Yes.
Yes.
Most certainly. And again, this is why it's so exciting being in early years. But, I can so clearly see this happening in a 6-7 class, when you're giving these opportunities to pull apart a book and pull apart its vocabulary, of course it's going to naturally spill over into other areas of their learning. When they're having that exposure,
Yes.
it has to happen, that engagement, it will. It's been fantastic.
What book next year?
Yeah.
Well, actually, new group of receptions, so
Could go again.
It's
It's been so much fun as well. And the kids are devastated we missed the last two because I got it in the third term and we read it for the fourth term. I
Yes.
think we missed out on 2 naughty children to read about. So
they'll be back.
they'll be back.
They'll be back, and if not, oh my goodness, they'll be asking their teacher next year, won't they?
Yeah.
Or if it's in. Here's the thing, though. If they've got access to that book,
Exactly right.
there will be children who will be absolutely searching that book out to either borrow from the library to take home, and if they're not ready for reading for themselves, to have somebody at home read to them.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a great author to expose them to get them into, there's a whole world of David Williams out there for them to explore. Phil, get us back on to where have we gone? And
well, I think we've looked at the timeless teas and how that's you've been concentrating on those in those 2 days, Sharon, and then all the teachers were trying those things out in their classrooms. So I guess probably a question is for next year, any new things that will be tried or...
well, this Thursday we're coming together as our early years team just to talk about how we're going to better implement literacy next year. Because of our increasing enrolments, there's been composite classes and just a higher increase in the numbers that we're seeing. So we are going to have to, change our practice slightly to cater for the numbers that we are seeing coming through in the amount of classes. And because we are a school that works very cohesively, we do need to be all on the same page for our planning. So this Thursday we're all coming together for a planning day, and we're going to be trialling a few things and seeing how a new model is going to be implemented, which is very exciting.
Yes. So we can kind of talk about that idea of that workshop model.
Yeah.
Is something. So for me, it is also a great privilege that I get to work with you as a school next year too. That
we're the lucky ones.
Oh, well, that is very mutual, I can assure you. So we've really, had a little bit of time to work together. Well, we've really had. I've spent a day with you as a staff. I've had, a chance to work with the 2 teachers through Be Brave and Lead, and then 3 of you actually through the early career teachers. But next year, yes, the school is really going on a focused journey around literacy and really thinking about how workshop model can
definitely
can strengthen. You've got a lot of practices, and you've got a lot of literacy curriculum that is well embedded, and now it's been good to really, the school's really looking in, reflecting, has been thinking about, where can we get higher impact? How can we, and how can we really, I suppose, build that culture of every child every day feeling like they are being the good growing as the good reader and writer. So,
and I guess listening to your learners and knowing what the next step is with those learners is balancing between finding out where they are, but also what curriculum you have to teach and how you're going to balance that out in a really effective way.
Yeah.
It's probably the big thing for next year.
Most certainly.
Yes. Yeah. Although, Maddie, you've already talked about a change that you've made there. There's another change that you, whereas you had sort of your set grouping of children that you would work with, you really found yourself being more responsive. Maddie's doing big head nods here around, and I know this is something as a school that you're thinking about too. How do we respond to when we're observing and collecting information about our students? How do we know what we're teaching based on that, and how are we giving more support to the children who we see from that lesson we've just taught, who needs a bit more with time before they move to independence?
And I think that's why, as a school, we are really interested and excited about moving towards this model for our literacy blocks, because I think it's another one of those moments where you go, of course, like, why haven't I thought of that? And, why aren't we doing it that way? Of course that makes sense. It was just one of those light bulb moments where we go, all right, we're doing it well.
Yes.
How do we do it even better? And that was, that was a moment where I had that ping where I went, I'm booking in my guided reading stations a fortnight in advance. I've already pre-selected the children and what I'm doing with them. How is that effective practice when I'm booking it that far in advance?
Yes.
Where, when we're looking at this model, you do the whole group learning and then you set the children off, but then that's where you then select that group for that particular skill.
Who are not getting it.
And it's just one of those moments where you go, why have we not thought of, why am I booking these kids in a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance?
Because teachers like to be organised.
And that is one of my I am OCD organised. But that has been a big moment, and I think it's something that it's going to have a very, very big emphasis on conversation on Thursday.
I reckon another podcast down the track is bringing Maddie back to talk about how that transformative tracking has gone.
Yeah.
Yes. Maddie, and we may have a whole staff here, actually.
Just bring the early years team down.
Yeah, that's right. We need more microphones.
Well, I was going to say, do you have more microphones?
We can get one more. And one on the phone.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes,
Book it in.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think that will be, I think listeners will be really interested actually in hearing about how that looks across each of the teams, you know,
Exactly.
across reception 1, 2, 3, 4,
Exactly.
5, 6. How does that, I'm really looking forward to the insights
Yeah.
that people have about that, because I know there will be, and I know that's something that we actually had someone email us just this week saying, happened to be for year 1, you know, saying, how could this look
Yeah.
in year 1? What can the literacy block look like? So I think this would be, you know, a really, I think it'd be nice to follow the journey.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think and that's what we're so grateful to you for, Maddie, in being, because you're so reflective on it. It's been very easy to identify what you were doing, what was the moment of, penny drop of,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's the high impact step
Yeah. Exactly.
I can take, and to trust that step. I suppose the learning gave you enough to be thinking about it, to trust what would be
Yeah.
a step, because you were also thinking about that with those children sitting in front of you in mind
Exactly right.
as you were doing
Yep.
the learning. So, any other questions, Phil?
Yeah, I would say I've always got another question. In your own classroom, Maddie, next year,
Yes.
is there any little tweaks that you can think of besides those bigger picture things, or both, or that you think you might bring in next year, or
You mean something Maddie hasn't tried already?
might be a bit hard to think of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I am a little sponge, so I'm very excited to be working with Sharon next year with the school so that we can continue building on these ideas and seeing the high impact that it has at school. And again, being the school that we are, a visible learning school, it is in our practice to be reflective and to
Yes.
evaluate how is it going, what's the next impact step, and how are we going to get there. So I think that, being in the school, it's fantastic to be in a position where reflection is it's expected.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
fantastic
Yes.
being in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you are doing a lot of, I think this is one of the other pieces around your school, is that you've got your teams that you're planning with your teams. And in fact, you have what's called in your school a literacy action team.
We do, and we also have a numeracy action team and a PBS action team, so our school works so cohesively
Yes.
together across the board.
Yes, and so really I think that's a great support
Yep.
for the conversations and the learning and keeping a focus.
And
keeping
also,
an eye
again,
on
bringing
things.
it back to that idea of not being afraid to ask questions. We've got a group of people that we can seek out when we do have a question in regards to these things. And in one of them being someone that you work closely with in that Be Brave program. So that, it's fantastic having people that we can immediately go to, send an email and get an instant reply, or walk up to the classroom and ask the question. So it's, again, being in a school with such a resource of staff that are
Yes.
there at your disposal to fire away questions of how can I make this look better? How can I make this more effective in the classroom? So, and again, when we come together in staff meetings, I talk from my perspective of being in early years and the SLC from senior learning, speak about theirs, and then we sort of see things that are similar.
Yes.
And things that are obviously more specific to the age group that we're teaching. So it's been fantastic sharing across the board as well.
I think we're going to have a whole lot of teachers applying for jobs at Mount Barker.
Yes.
It is a fantastic school.
Just a promo here. But, no.
Well, and justifiably so.
Yeah.
This has come with, a lot of thinking and planning to
Yes.
build a culture
Years.
of learning and teamwork
Yeah.
like this. So, it's been. I think we both feel that privilege of stepping into, you as a graduate teacher, stepping into that learning environment, and me as someone who is just an every now and then person in the school who is really as I say, that as a team culture there, you know, I feel that immediately that, you know, it's being part of a team.
Yeah.
Very, very strong learning culture.
And now we'll just go on to our next section, which is our rapid fire questions. They don't have to be too rapid.
I know.
I was going to say, you haven't
Maddie's
prepared
going,
me for this.
no, I saw that look and didn't send them because there's nothing. These are off the top of your head thinking pieces.
Fire away.
Just a bit of fun.
Yes, and it is just fun and nothing tricky. And Maddie, you haven't been stuck for words.
Yeah, look, I have been told that I can talk to a brick wall.
So number one, what was your favourite book as a child?
Oh my goodness. I think, you know, you can't go past the books that were the books that are just, they're still fantastic. You know, the Rainbow Fish.
Oh, yes.
The Hungry Caterpillar. I think those sort of books, they're still books that I use for teaching. I don't think you can go past those books at all.
No, I agree. The classics, aren't they?
They are. And of course, all the fairy tales I absolutely loved. I've got very fond memories of being at my grandparents' house, and she had a fairy tale book, and it was thick with all of the traditional fairy tales. And I just remembered each time we'd go for a sleepover, she would read us one. So I've got very fond memories of all the traditional fairy tales.
They're so important for young kids.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes,
They really are.
Yeah.
Have you got a fairy tale collection book
No.
in your classroom library?
I think I actually do have one. I've got one, a thick one that has like same situation where it has lots of them in the one, and it's well loved.
Yes,
it's very rough on the edges and very worn. It's stunning,
beautiful, beautiful. I knew you'd have one.
Yeah.
What's your most interesting school story?
Oh my goodness, interesting school story. Look, teaching early years, I think every day's an interesting story, if I'm completely honest with you. Where do I start?
Good answer. Good answer.
Early years is interesting. There you go.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yes.
How do you think you learned to read?
That's a really good question. I think it really would come down to the teachers that I had, again, fostering that love and that interest for books and modelling and demonstrating.
And home before that?
Yeah.
Before school?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Just being growing up in a family that would provide opportunities for reading before bed and sitting and all cuddling up on the couch and reading a book together. I think they're fond memories that I would hope that all children have, but the reality is that it quite often isn't. So I think being brought up in a family, in a home that did really value those experiences together, reading together.
And what you've now got to give to children that might not have that is fantastic.
Because you felt it.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? That, you know, that question, oh, that's a good question, and yet you remember.
Yeah, straight away. It's those memories, the feelings, exactly.
Of it, and how, and clearly there wasn't a time where you thought reading is difficult, or it's something I don't want to do, or it's, you know, it's all wrapped in good feeling. Yeah. And I can do this. Yeah. Yeah. I am a reader.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
What makes you smile?
Teaching. There you go. No, what makes me smile?
Can be lots of things.
The environment makes me smile. My drive to work makes me smile. I've got a beautiful drive to work in the the Adelaide Hills. My family, my friends make me smile. What I do for a job makes me smile. Yeah, I have a lot to smile for.
It all spills out into the way you are, Maddie. Yeah. Yes.
And we kind of answered this one before. Best tip for thriving in your first year of teaching?
Yeah, most certainly asking those questions.
Asking colleagues.
Yeah. Ask those questions, whatever it may be. Yeah. Ask the question to someone.
Yeah. Favourite read aloud? Read to you or that you love to read aloud? We've kind of done that a bit.
Yes.
I was going to say, obviously, my class novel at the moment is very, very popular for both me to read to the class, but for the class to engage with. But, yeah, a couple of books that I've gotten from the donations have been beautiful little reads and had really nice little morals I read one recently. It was called Sandcastle. I'm not sure who wrote it, but it was a beautiful picture book. But there was this fantastic moral of having a growth mindset behind building sandcastles and letting the sandcastles be washed away and then coming back and rebuilding. So it just like the books that have those beautiful morals that until you've gotten to the last page, you go, oh, that was lovely. And quite often I'll finish reading a book to the kids and I'll say, I loved that. Did you guys really enjoy that too? I thought that was really beautiful, the story that I had. So I think there's been quite a few.
Oh, Maddie, so really all of these books coming into that classroom library collection has really expanded your reading.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. And I can't sort of emphasise how fantastic the donations have been. I would have received over 100 books easily. I just wish I counted so I actually knew, because the amount of books that I was given from families, from other teachers, because I emailed out to staff, I'm still receiving them. So it's been fantastic, and it is getting to a point where I'm, handing them out to other people in other classrooms, saying this would be fantastic for you guys, your level.
Yes.
And even in saying that, I have novel books in the classroom. Might not be a just right reading book, but they've got illustrations in there, and even just sort of listening to children creating their own narrative via the pictures. There is an entry point even when it is a novel. So
there's that nice word we haven't used that much this podcast, entry points. As we know, it's so critical.
So
Well, I think we've come to the end of our session.
Oh, I know. It's like we're sitting here going, oh, did we really want to finish?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, it's been wonderful.
No, well, Maddie, you'll be back.
Okay.
You'll be back.
Yes.
Catch the early years team in 6 months' time, and we'll let you know how those impacts are going.
Yes. Oh, I think it'll be before 6 months, my dear. I think we will. I think it might be. But yes,
exciting.
This space is, I think this will be great to have. I think this will be a wonderful journey. For listeners to share in this too. I think, as schools, we're all, and as teachers, we're all interested in knowing, okay, what are people doing? How are they doing it?
Exactly.
How do we make that work? And as a profession, sometimes we can feel isolated by that, even when we're in a school.
Yeah.
We're going, so how is someone else doing that? And, the more we can share those stories and that information, the more we learn, even if we are hearing something and we go, I hadn't thought to ask that question yet, but yes, I'm really interested in, that as an idea or a thought or a high impact, something I could try.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are in Australia or around the world. We hope we've brought some really great tips to you today. And thank you so much to Maddie for some excellent tips for us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Generosity of sharing and letting us into your classroom, into your thinking as an early career teacher, into your art of reflection, and into that world of readers and writers and that real engagement and motivation that you're aiming to build and doing.
And all the best for next year, starting off with your new group. And
yes,
I'm sure it's going to be exciting.
Yes.
Very.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I know.
You've met them already? Or?
I have. We've done our 4 transitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Are they ready?
Do you know what? They are a group of very independent kids. They all seem very ready for school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Oh, they're ready, all right. But the world they're stepping into is fabulous.
Yes.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you for having me.
And even though people may be listening to this at different times, it's the end of a school year as we record this. So we're going to wish Maddie a really recharging few weeks.
Thank you.
So that all of that energy is ready for that next group.
Yeah.
So, and happy reading. I'm sure you'll do a little bit of reading over the holidays.
Certainly will be.
Yeah.
A couple of wish lists for Christmas, so we'll see how we go.
Beautiful.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thanks.
listening, and bye for now. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.